Encircled, her spear broke. Then a human fell from the sky. Mind if I enter the fight? Leela Morgan crouched behind a shattered stone pillar, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She could hear the heavy footsteps of the Xylarians moving closer, their claws scraping against the hard ground. They had surrounded her. She counted carefully, 1, 2, 3, too many to fight alone. Her spear felt heavy in her hands, and for a moment she wondered if it would even hold. She had sharpened it herself, engraved the edge with small symbols for luck, and carried it through countless battles, but today something felt different. These Xylarians were larger, stronger, and smarter than any she had faced before. Their red eyes glowed in the dim light, and their jagged teeth clicked as they prepared to strike. Leela swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the broken wood and metal of her weapon. She remembered the training, the countless drills, the days spent running, jumping, and learning how to survive against creatures far stronger than humans. Yet, nothing could prepare her for the feeling of being truly trapped, with nowhere to run. Her mind raced, looking for a plan, a way to escape, any weakness she could exploit. But the terrain offered little cover. The rocks were jagged, the craters deep, and the enemy was closing in fast. A shadow moved across the ground and Leela flinched. She had no time to hide. One of the Xylarians charged, its long limbs moving with surprising speed. She lunged forward, thrusting her spear with all her strength. The weapon struck the creature's shoulder, but instead of stopping it, the metal snapped with a sharp crack. The spear's tip bent, useless. She felt the panic rising in her chest, hot and sharp. She kicked backward, trying to create some distance, but another Xylarian was already on her, its claws slashing. Leela rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack, and scrambled to her feet. Her breathing was heavy, her muscles screaming. She had fought many battles, but this felt different. This felt like the end. She looked around frantically, searching for anything, some advantage, some hope. The Xylarians moved with terrifying coordination. They did not hesitate. They surrounded her from every side, circling, cutting off every escape route. Leela's mind flashed through every strategy she had learned. She could try to climb one of the rocks, but the creatures would catch her easily. She could hide, but there was nowhere safe. She could fight, but with her broken spear, she had no chance of survival. Her eyes scanned the battlefield desperately. Smoke from the distant fires blurred the horizon, and the red sky reflected in the pools of molten metal scattered across the ground. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to find cover, but there was no time. The Xylarians were almost upon her, their claws raised, their teeth glinting. She tightened her grip on the broken spear, feeling its weight, feeling the hopelessness pressing down on her. Then something unusual happened. A sudden shadow passed above her, moving fast across the sky. At first, she thought it was just a cloud, but then it grew larger, closer, moving toward her. Leela squinted, trying to see. She could see a small glint of metal, a sharp outline cutting through the smoke and light. Her heart skipped a beat. Something was coming. Something not like her, not like the Xylarians. The creatures hesitated for a moment, confused by the movement in the sky. They stopped circling her for a fraction of a second, and in that small pause, Leela saw it. A human was falling from the sky. His body twisted as he descended, landing with a crash that shook the ground. Dust and stones flew in every direction, and for a moment the battlefield went silent. The Xylarians turned their attention to this new arrival. Their claws moved faster, their red eyes narrowed. Leela felt a strange mix of hope and fear. She had heard stories of humans being strong and clever, but no one she knew had ever seen one in person. Legends spoke of humans who could defeat armies alone, humans who could survive impossible odds, but those were stories. This was real. And this human was about to enter the fight. The human landed, rolling with precision, and then he stood. Leela could see him clearly now. He was not wearing heavy armor, not carrying a large weapon. Just a simple suit, light and practical, and a strange glowing gauntlet on his arm. He looked calm, almost relaxed, as if he had just stepped out for a walk. His dark hair fell slightly across his face, but his eyes burned with a strange light, focused and unshakable. "Mind if I enter the fight?" he said, his voice carrying easily over the battlefield. It was casual, almost friendly, and yet it sent a chill through Leela's spine. The Zalarians hissed and roared, but something in their movements changed. They hesitated, unsure, cautious. Leela could not believe it. One human and they were unsure. Her heart leapt. She had a chance. She moved closer to him, staying low, still cautious, still afraid. Who are you?" she whispered, not expecting an answer. The human glanced at her, a faint smile on his face. "Name's Luke Carter. Don't worry. I've got this." Then he turned, facing the nearest Zalarians. Leela could not understand how someone could look so calm in the middle of certain death, but Luke seemed completely at ease. With a sudden burst of speed, he leapt forward. His movements were fluid, almost impossible. One Zalarian swung its claws at him, and he dodged, twisting in midair, using his gauntlet to push off the ground and land behind the creature. In an instant, he grabbed a piece of the broken spear lying near Leela's feet and used it to strike the creature in a weak spot. It screamed, stumbling back. Leela's jaw dropped. The other Zylarians hesitated, unsure what to do. Luke moved faster than anything she had ever seen, striking, dodging, using the environment to his advantage. Rocks, dust, fire. He used everything as a weapon, everything as a shield. Leela realized something important. This human was not just strong. He was clever, unpredictable, unstoppable in ways she had never imagined. She felt a rush of hope, something she had not felt in hours, maybe days. She picked up another piece of her broken spear, gripping it tightly. She would fight. She could survive. Maybe, just maybe, they could win this battle together. The Zalarians roared again, louder this time. They would not back down, and now they had a new target, but Luke did not flinch. He moved like water, flowing around their attacks, striking with precision. Leela watched, amazed, as he dismantled the first wave of enemies with a combination of speed, strength, and intelligence. The ground shook with each impact, the air filled with dust, sparks, and the sounds of battle. Leela could see small groups of Zylarians retreating, confused by his tactics. Others tried to attack him in numbers, but he always stayed one step ahead. Every swing, every leap, every movement seemed calculated, effortless. It was like watching a story unfold in real time, a story she could hardly believe. Leela realized something in that moment. This was no ordinary human. He was not just strong or fast. He was different. He was dangerous in the best way. And she felt a strange, thrilling certainty. If they could hold out, if they could survive the next few moments, maybe, just maybe, they would see victory. The shadow of hope had entered the battlefield. And with it, the impossible had begun. The battlefield of Zyrath shook with each movement. Dust and smoke hung thick in the air, making it hard to see more than a few meters ahead. Leela crouched low behind a jagged rock, clutching the broken pieces of her spear. Her heart was still racing from the sudden arrival of the human. His name, Luke Carter, had slipped into her mind, and she kept repeating it like a mantra. Luke Carter, he is real. The Zylarians were regrouping. Their claws scratched against the rocks as they circled, their red eyes fixed on the human who had just fallen from the sky. Leela could hear their harsh, guttural hisses. They were communicating somehow, issuing commands she could not understand. She did not need to understand their words to know they were wary. Every time Luke moved, they hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Luke did not waste a moment. He moved forward, fast and fluid, like a shadow slipping between the rocks. His gauntlet glowed brighter, and small pulses of energy shot from it, striking the nearest Zylarians with enough force to throw them off balance. Leela watched in awe. The human did not need heavy weapons or armor. He used his mind, his speed, and cleverness to fight. One Zylarian lunged at Luke from behind a jagged rock. Luke twisted in midair, catching the creature's arm with his free hand and sending it crashing into the ground. The alien groaned and scrambled to its feet, but Luke was already gone, moving toward another threat. Leela could hardly keep up with his movements. Everything he did seemed precise, as if he had planned it all before stepping onto the battlefield. She realized she had been frozen with fear for too long. She had training, skill, and experience. She could fight. She could survive. Taking a deep breath, she ran forward, moving behind Luke, trying to support him. Together, they could cover more ground, fight more effectively. Leela grabbed a piece of broken metal lying near her feet and swung it at an approaching Xylarian. The creature recoiled in surprise, giving Luke the opening he needed to strike. Luke glanced back at her and nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "We can do this," his look seemed to say. That small gesture filled Leela with determination. She felt the fire of courage rising inside her chest. She would not let herself die here. She would fight. She would survive. The Xylarians seemed to notice the change. They shifted their focus, now attacking both humans at once. Claws, teeth, and weapons all came at them from multiple directions. Luke moved like water, flowing around their attacks, striking when the moment was right. He picked up pieces of broken rock and metal, turning them into projectiles, sending the Xylarians flying back with clever throws and precise strikes. Leela tried to keep up. She blocked an attack with a shard of metal, then kicked the creature away, rolling to avoid its next strike. She felt sweat running down her face, mixing with the dust and grime of the battlefield. Her arms ached, her legs screamed, but she refused to stop. She watched Luke leap over a group of Xylarians, strike two of them with a single movement, and land without missing a step. She had never seen anyone fight like that. One particularly large Xylarian advanced on Luke, bigger than the others, with claws like curved blades and armor that seemed nearly impenetrable. Leela gasped. There was no way Luke could handle that alone, but he did not hesitate. He assessed the creature in a single glance, then moved. He dodged the first swipe of its claws, ducked under the second, and with a spinning kick, he struck its knee joint. The Xylarian roared, stumbling backward. Leela could hardly believe what she was seeing. One human against so many, and he was holding his own. He was doing more than holding his own, he was turning the tide of the battle. She felt hope swell in her chest. Maybe they could win this. Maybe they could survive. The battle moved quickly, faster than she could process. Luke leapt over a pile of rubble, grabbed a broken piece of machinery, and used it like a battering ram against a group of Xylarians. The creatures scattered, dazed and confused. He did not pause. He turned a fallen rock into a weapon, sending it spinning into a cluster of enemies. They fell back, roaring and hissing, unsure how to react to this strange, clever human. Leela ran alongside him, striking where she could, blocking attacks and using her small size and speed to her advantage. She realized something important. Luke was not just strong or fast. He was smart. He used the battlefield itself as a weapon. Every rock, every slope, every piece of rubble became part of his plan. And she was part of it now, fighting with him, moving as if they were connected. The Xylarians tried to regroup, but their coordination faltered. Luke's movements were unpredictable, impossible to anticipate. One moment he was on the left, the next he was behind an enemy, striking from a new angle. Leela watched as he used clever tricks, baiting one Xylarian toward a crater, then using a burst of energy from his gauntlet to send it tumbling into the hole. She realized the human's power was not just in strength or skill, it was in thinking. He could see solutions where others saw only danger. He could turn impossible situations into opportunities, and the Xylarians, for all their size and strength, could not match him. A group of smaller Xylarians charged at them together, trying to surround the pair. Luke laughed softly, a sound that seemed out of place on a battlefield, and then he moved. He grabbed a fallen beam of metal, swung it like a lever, and knocked two creatures off their feet. He then used the recoil to push himself into the air, landing behind another enemy and striking with precise force. Leela followed, striking where she could. Her confidence grew with each successful attack. She realized she could trust him. He was not just fighting, he was teaching her, showing her how to move, how to strike, how to survive. Together, they became more than fighters, they became a force. The Zalarians tried to adapt. They changed their formation, moving more carefully, more strategically. But Luke was faster. He analyzed, predicted, and countered every move. Leela marveled at his clarity and focus. He never panicked, never faltered, never hesitated. He was human, but he seemed more than that, almost as if he were a force of nature. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the ground nearby. One of the Xylarians' war machines had fired at them, a bright beam of energy cutting across the battlefield. Leela stumbled, shielding her face, and felt the heat singe her clothes. Luke did not hesitate. He jumped high, flipping over the beam, and then used the edge of a crater to spring himself forward, landing among the nearest Xylarians with perfect timing. He struck two enemies at once, using the momentum of his movement to send them crashing into each other. Leela ran with him, feeling the rhythm of the battle, moving in sync. She realized that humans were not just strong or clever, they were adaptable. They could change, improvise, and survive in ways that no one else could. And Luke was the perfect example. Time seemed to blur. The battlefield became a whirlwind of motion. Dust, smoke, and debris filled the air. The Xylarians attacked relentlessly, but every strike was countered. Every advance was met with a clever trap or a sudden burst of force. Leela could feel her fear melting, replaced by something she had not felt before, confidence. She watched Luke leap over a group of Xylarians, grab a fallen piece of metal, and use it like a hammer to smash a machine weapon into pieces. Sparks flew and the enemies recoiled, unsure how to respond. Luke moved like water flowing around attacks, striking when the moment was right, never wasting a single second. Leela ran beside him, striking where she could, and for the first time in hours she felt hope. They could survive this. They could fight. They could win. The Xylarians may have surrounded them, but with Luke's mind and skill, they were no longer hopeless. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the battlefield, Leela realized something important. Humans were not just fighters, they were thinkers. They were clever, resourceful, and unbreakable in ways that no other species could match. And standing beside her now was the proof. Luke glanced at her, a small smile on his face. "Ready?" he asked, his voice calm and steady. Leela nodded, gripping her broken spear tightly. Together, they faced the Xylarians, two humans against the many, ready to turn the impossible into reality. And for the first time, she felt certain. With him here, they might just survive. The battlefield of Xyrath was a scene of chaos. Smoke and dust filled the air, and the ground shook under the weight of falling debris and crashing enemies. Leela ran beside Luke, keeping her eyes sharp for danger. Every movement mattered, every decision could mean life or death. She was still amazed at how calm Luke remained, even as the Xylarians pressed harder, trying to overwhelm them. Luke scanned the battlefield quickly, his eyes sharp and calculating. He did not just fight blindly. He studied the enemy, predicting their movements and planning his next strike. Leela realized that was the key. Humans did not just rely on strength, they relied on thinking, speed, and creativity. Luke was proving that in every moment. A group of Xylarians advanced, larger and faster than before. They moved like a wall, claws ready to strike. Leela raised her makeshift spear and braced herself, but Luke did not panic. He crouched low, then suddenly shot forward like a blur. He dodged a swipe from one creature, rolled under another, and with a sudden kick, sent the largest Xylarian stumbling into a crater. Leela gasped. She could barely see him move, and yet every strike landed perfectly. The smaller Xylarians tried to flank them, moving in from the sides. Luke spun on his feet, using a piece of broken machinery as a shield, and then leapt over them, landing behind their formation. He grabbed a fallen rock, hurling it with precision to knock two creatures off balance. Leela followed, striking with her spear whenever she could, each hit guided by Luke's careful timing. "Watch the left flank," Luke shouted, pointing to a group of Xylarians trying to sneak around them. Leela spun, thrusting her spear and blocking an attack just in time. They worked together, moving like one. Every motion seemed synchronized, almost like they had practiced for this moment all their lives. The Xylarians hissed and roared, frustrated by the humans' coordination. They had expected an easy victory, but these two were proving stronger and smarter than they had imagined. Luke's clever use of the environment kept them off balance. Rocks, craters, debris, everything became a weapon. Leela realized humans could use thinking to multiply their power. One human with a mind like Luke's could defeat dozens, even hundreds, if given the chance. A massive Xylarian, bigger than the others, moved toward them, its claws flashing. Leela froze for a moment. That creature could crush them in a single swipe, but Luke did not hesitate. He ran forward, dodging the first attack, and then used the energy from his gauntlet to push off a rock, landing on the Xylarian's back. Leela held her breath as Luke struck, striking the creature's weak points with quick, precise movements. The giant Xylarian roared in pain, trying to shake him off, but Luke held on. Using his cleverness and strength, he twisted the creature's limb and sent it crashing into the ground. Leela felt a thrill of hope. This was no ordinary human. Luke's power was not just in his body, it was in his mind, his speed, and his courage. The smaller Xylarians tried to attack Luke while he fought the giant, but he was always one step ahead. He used their weight against them, leading them into craters and debris where they stumbled and fell. Leela ran beside him, helping whenever she could, striking down enemies with her spear. Together they became unstoppable. Time passed like a blur. The Xylarians attacked relentlessly, but each strike was met with a clever counter. Luke was everywhere at once, dodging, striking, and manipulating the battlefield. Leela felt her fear melting away, replaced with confidence. She was no longer just fighting to survive, she was fighting to win. A group of Xylarians tried a new tactic. They formed a tight circle, claws raised, hoping to trap the humans. Luke smiled. "Nice try," he said, and jumped high, flipping over them. He landed behind the circle and used a fallen metal beam like a lever, sending several creatures tumbling over each other. Leela took advantage of the confusion, striking down the ones who remained standing. The battlefield was chaotic. Dust, smoke, and debris made it hard to see, but Luke's movements cut through the chaos like a knife. He was fast, precise, and unpredictable. Leela realized that humans were different from any other species. They could adapt, improvise, and think faster than anyone expected. That was why the Xylarians struggled. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the ground nearby. One of the Xylarians' machines had fired, a bright energy beam cutting across the battlefield. Leela stumbled but did not fall. She watched as Luke leapt over the beam, flipping and landing perfectly on his feet. He moved like water, flowing around danger, striking at exactly the right moment. The smaller Xylarians hesitated, unsure how to react to this human who seemed unstoppable. Luke used the pause to his advantage. He grabbed a piece of debris and swung it like a hammer, knocking several creatures down. Then he turned, using his gauntlet to create a small energy blast, sending another group tumbling backward. Leela followed, striking wherever she could. The Xylarians tried to regroup. They formed new formations, attacked in coordinated waves, and even tried to set traps. But Luke was always ahead. He saw their moves before they could act, dodged their attacks, and turned the environment against them. Every crater, rock, and broken machine became part of his strategy. Leela realized humans were not just fighters. They were thinkers, engineers, and tacticians all at once. One Xylarian managed to grab her from behind, claws digging into her armor. Leela froze, but Luke was already there. He grabbed a loose rock and threw it at the creature's head with perfect accuracy. The Zalarian released her, stunned, and Leela rolled to safety. She breathed heavily, realizing how much she relied on Luke. He was not just a fighter, he was a force that changed the battlefield with every move. Another giant Zalarian appeared, bigger than the first, its red eyes blazing. Leela felt her stomach twist. That creature could crush them both in seconds, but Luke did not hesitate. He analyzed the giant, moving around it, using speed and cleverness instead of brute force. He led it into a crater, then used the edge of the rocks to spring himself onto the creature's back. He struck hard, hitting weak points, and the giant roared in pain, stumbling. Leela struck at smaller Zalarians who tried to help the giant, using her speed and skill to take them down. She realized that humans were not just strong, they were resourceful. They could fight against impossible odds and turn even desperate situations into victory. Luke proved that every moment. The Zalarians began to panic. Their formations broke, their attacks faltered, and they started to retreat. Luke pressed the advantage, striking with speed and precision. He used the terrain, the debris, and every weapon available to push them back. Leela felt a rush of excitement. They were winning. Against all odds, they were winning. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Dust and smoke filled the air, but the humans stood strong. Luke glanced at Leela, a small smile on his face. "You ready for the next wave?" he asked. Leela nodded, gripping her spear tightly, filled with a new confidence. Together, they had survived the impossible and turned the tide. As the Zalarians regrouped for another attack, Leela realized something important. Humans were special. Not because of strength alone, but because they could think, adapt, and fight in ways no one expected. And standing beside her now was proof of that. Luke Carter was more than a human. He was a force of nature, and with him, nothing seemed impossible. The battle was not over, but for the first time, Leela felt hope. Together, she and Luke could face anything. The Zalarians may have surrounded them, but humans could turn hopeless situations into victories. She knew that whatever came next, they would survive, and maybe, just maybe, they could win. The battlefield had changed. Smoke and dust rose from broken machines and shattered ground, turning the sky into a dull, orange haze. Leela ran beside Luke, keeping her eyes open for any sign of the Zalarians. They had pushed the enemy back, but she knew this fight was far from over. The aliens were clever and brutal. They would not give up easily. Luke moved like a shadow across the battlefield, his gauntlet glowing brightly. He did not rush blindly. Each step, each move was calculated. He studied the enemy's formation and adjusted instantly. Leela kept pace, amazed at how quickly he adapted to every change. She had never seen anyone think and act so fast at the same time. Humans were not just fighters, she realized. They were problem solvers, inventors, and warriors all at once. A squad of Zalarians charged from the right, trying to flank them. Luke spotted them immediately. "Left side, watch out," he shouted, his voice calm but sharp. Leela spun just in time to block a swipe from one of the attackers. Luke leapt forward, landing behind the squad, and used the edge of a broken metal panel to knock two of them off their feet. He did not stop. He moved to the next group, swinging debris like a weapon and striking the aliens with precise force. Leela followed his movements, striking where she could, dodging when needed, and using the broken rocks and metal around her. Together they became a whirlwind of motion, impossible for the Zalarians to follow. Each attack was clever, each move unpredictable. Leela realized that humans could fight in ways the Zalarians could never understand. They were not just strong, they were inventive. One of the larger Zalarians moved toward them, its claws like curved blades and eyes glowing red. Leela felt her stomach tighten. That creature was huge, easily double her size, but Luke did not hesitate. He jumped high, twisting in midair, and landed on the Zalarian's shoulder. He struck hard with his gauntlet, sending energy pulses into its armor. The creature stumbled but tried to shake him off. Leela rushed forward, striking at the smaller Zalarians who were helping the giant. She blocked a swipe and jabbed her spear into the creature's leg. The combination of her strikes and Luke's clever attacks was enough to confuse and slow the giant. It roared, swinging wildly, but every swing missed Luke, and Leela used each miss to her advantage. Another squad of Zalarians tried to trap them from behind. Luke spun, using his momentum to slide past them, then grabbed a fallen metal rod and sent it flying at the group, knocking several down. Leela ran beside him, striking with her spear, dodging attacks, and using debris as her own weapon. She felt exhilaration and fear mixed together, a rush she had never felt before. Humans were not just survivors, they were unstoppable when they thought creatively. Luke and Leela worked as one. They moved fluidly, attacking, dodging, and thinking together. Every time the Zalarians tried to regroup or trap them, Luke saw the opportunity and acted. He used rocks, broken machines, craters, and even the shadows to confuse and attack the enemy. Leela realized that humans were more than just fighters. They were clever, adaptable, and unpredictable. A massive explosion shook the ground nearby. One of the Zalarian war machines had fired a powerful energy beam. Leela fell to the ground, shielding herself. She looked up and saw Luke leaping over the beam, flipping perfectly and landing behind the machine. He struck it with precise energy bursts from his gauntlet, sending sparks flying. The machine wobbled and then fell, destroyed. Leela could not help but cheer silently. This human was incredible. The Zalarians tried to reorganize, forming tight formations and moving quickly. Luke studied them for a moment, then moved like lightning. He dodged one attack, swung a fallen metal beam to knock another group aside, and landed behind a large alien, striking its weak point. Leela followed, attacking from the side, distracting the smaller enemies. She began to see the pattern. Humans could turn the environment into a weapon. They could attack in ways the Zalarians could not predict. One human with a mind like Luke's could change the outcome of a battle entirely. Leela felt a surge of hope and pride. She was fighting beside someone extraordinary, someone who could defy impossible odds. The Zalarians tried a new tactic. They sent a huge creature, covered in thick armor, moving directly toward Luke. Its claws scraped the ground, and it let out a roar that shook the air. Leela froze for a second, but Luke did not. He ran toward the creature, moving quickly and using every trick in his arsenal. He dodged the first swipe, rolled under the second, and then leapt onto its back. Using his gauntlet, he struck precise points, sending pulses of energy into the creature's armor. It roared in pain, swinging wildly to shake him off. Leela attacked the smaller Zalarians around it, keeping them away from Luke. Together, they managed to topple the massive creature, sending it crashing into a crater. Leela felt her heart race. They were winning, but the fight was far from over. Another group of Zalarians tried to attack from the left, but Luke was ready. He grabbed a piece of metal from the ground and used it like a lever to knock them down. Leela ran with him, striking and dodging, moving with a rhythm that made them almost unstoppable. Every moment, every action, showed her how humans could turn impossible situations into victories. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Smoke and dust filled the air, making it hard to see, but Luke and Leela moved as if they could see everything. They attacked, dodged, and struck with perfect timing. The Zalarians were faltering, unsure how to fight these humans who were faster, smarter, and more creative than anything they had faced. Luke glanced at Leela, a small smile on his face. "Keep moving. Don't give them a chance to recover," he shouted. Leela nodded, feeling adrenaline and excitement flow through her body. Together, they were unstoppable. She realized humans were not just fighters. They were inventors, thinkers, and warriors all at once. The Zalarians tried to bring in more forces, hoping to overwhelm the humans with numbers. But Luke was ready. He led them into a series of craters and broken machinery, using the terrain to confuse and trap the aliens. Leela followed, striking where she could, dodging attacks and helping to lead the Zalarians into traps. They moved like a single unit, striking together, dodging together, thinking together. Leela felt pride and amazement. She had never fought beside anyone like Luke before. His speed, strength, and cleverness were beyond anything she had imagined. Humans were not just strong, they were unstoppable when they used their minds as well as their bodies. Another massive explosion shook the battlefield. One of the Zalarians' war machines fired, but Luke anticipated it. He leapt high, flipping over the blast, and landed perfectly, striking at the enemies with precise force. Leela followed, striking the smaller Zalarians, helping to break the enemy formation. The battlefield was chaos, but Luke and Leela moved through it like a storm. Rocks, dust, debris, and energy beams flew in every direction, but they remained focused. The Zalarians were strong, but the humans were smarter. They used every advantage, every trick, every opportunity to turn the fight in their favor. As the sun disappeared completely, casting a dark shadow over the battlefield, Leela realized something important. Humans were not just fighters, they were clever, adaptable, and unstoppable, and standing beside her now was proof of that. Luke Carter was extraordinary, and together they could face anything. The Zalarians had been pushed back, their numbers reduced, their formations broken. Luke and Leela were still standing, tired but alive. And for the first time in the battle, Leela felt a deep, thrilling certainty. With Luke, they could survive anything. They could win. The impossible had become possible. And as they prepared for the next wave, Leela knew one thing for sure. Humans were special. They were not just strong. They were thinkers, fighters, and survivors in ways no one else could match. And with Luke beside her, the tide of battle had already turned. The battlefield was quiet for a moment, but Leela knew it was only temporary. Smoke and dust still hung in the air, and the sounds of distant explosions echoed from the edges of the battlefield. The Zalarians were retreating, but they were not defeated. Their war machines lay broken, their squads scattered, but Leela knew more would come. Luke Carter stood beside her, his gauntlet still glowing faintly, his dark hair dusted with dirt, his expression calm and confident. "We need to finish this," Luke said simply. His voice was steady, but there was a sharp edge to it that made Leela feel ready for anything. She nodded, gripping the broken spear tightly. Together, they had already turned the battle in their favor, but there was no room for mistakes. From the horizon, more Zalarians were coming. Their ships hovered low, dropping squads of warriors onto the planet's surface. Leela felt a chill run down her spine. This was it, the final push. But she did not feel fear, not with Luke beside her. Humans were not just brave, they were unstoppable when they focused, when they thought, when they acted together. Luke scanned the battlefield, his eyes moving quickly from one threat to another. "Follow me, keep close," he said. Leela ran beside him, moving through the broken ground, dodging falling debris and shattered machines. The Zalarians charged, claws and weapons raised, but Luke was already in motion. He leapt high, twisting in the air, and landed behind a group of aliens, striking them with his gauntlet. Energy pulses hit hard, sending the creatures tumbling backward. Leela moved with him, striking down any alien that tried to flank them. Every swing of her broken spear counted, every movement precise. She realized something she had never understood fully before. Humans were more than fighters. They were thinkers. They could turn almost any situation into a chance to win. Luke's mind was fast, his planning perfect, and his speed beyond anything the Zalarians could match. One of the largest Zalarians advanced, a towering brute covered in thick armor. It swung its claws in massive arcs, each strike capable of crushing a human. Leela froze for a moment, but Luke did not. He ran toward the creature, moving faster than she thought possible. He dodged the first swing, rolled under the second and leapt onto its back. Using his gauntlet, he struck at the creature's weak points, sending energy pulses into the armor. The Zalarian roared, swinging wildly to shake him off. Leela attacked the smaller Zalarians around it, keeping them at bay, striking quickly and effectively. Together, they brought the giant down, sending it crashing into the ground with a loud, echoing roar. Another wave of Zalarians moved in from the left. Luke did not hesitate. He used his speed and cleverness, leading them into a series of traps he had set during the battle. Rocks, debris, and craters became part of his plan. He struck one group, then the next, always moving, always thinking, always ahead of them. Leela followed, her confidence growing with every successful strike. The battlefield was chaos. Dust and smoke filled the air, energy blasts from the gauntlet lit up the night, and the screams of the Zalarians echoed across the land. But Luke moved like a shadow through it all, striking with precision and cleverness. Leela realized that humans could survive situations that no other species could. They could adapt, improvise, and find solutions where others saw only danger. A massive explosion shook the ground. One of the Zalarian war machines fired, sending a beam of energy across the battlefield. Leela fell to the ground, shielding herself. She looked up to see Luke leaping over the blast, flipping perfectly, and landing behind the machine. With a few precise strikes from his gauntlet, the machine was destroyed. Sparks and smoke rose into the air, and the Zalarians nearest it fell back in confusion. Leela moved quickly, striking at the aliens who tried to recover from the chaos. She realized that humans could turn even the deadliest attacks into opportunities. Every movement Luke made created a new chance to win, and she followed him, striking and dodging, learning from him with every step. The Zalarians tried to regroup for one final push. They formed a massive formation, bigger and stronger than any before. Leela's heart raced. She could see hundreds of claws and teeth moving toward them, but Luke was ready. He studied the formation, his eyes scanning for weaknesses. "Stay close to me," he said calmly. Leela nodded. Together they would face this final wave. Luke moved first, running toward the enemy. His movements were fast and fluid, almost impossible to follow. He dodged attacks, twisted through the formation, and struck with his gauntlet at the weak points. Leela followed, striking where she could, using her broken spear to push back smaller enemies. The Zalarians roared, confused by the human speed and cleverness. One massive Zalarian tried to crush them both at once, swinging its huge claws. Luke leapt onto its arm, striking with energy pulses, while Leela attacked the smaller creatures at its feet. The Zalarian roared and stumbled, giving them a chance to attack again. They moved like a single unit, thinking and acting together. Every strike, every dodge, every movement was precise. Another group tried to flank them from behind. Luke anticipated it, twisting and flipping to avoid the attack, then striking with his gauntlet to knock several aliens down. Leela moved with him, striking and blocking, always in sync. Humans were more than strong. They were unstoppable when they worked together, when they used brains and skill, when they never stopped thinking. The battle raged on for hours, but slowly, the Zalarians' numbers fell. Machines were destroyed, creatures were defeated, and their formations broke completely. Luke moved quickly, striking down any who tried to regroup. Leela felt her heart race, her arms ache, but she never stopped. Together, they were unstoppable. Humans were not just fighters. They were forces that could change the course of battle with speed, skill, and cleverness. Finally, the last of the Zalarians faltered. They tried to flee, but Luke anticipated it. He moved faster than they could react, striking down the last enemies with precise, calculated movements. Leela ran beside him, striking where she could, and together they finished the battle. The battlefield fell silent except for the sounds of the wind and the distant cries of retreating aliens. Leela sank to her knees, exhausted but alive. Dust and sweat covered her body, but she felt exhilaration. They had survived. They had won. And she had learned something she would never forget. Humans were not just strong, they were thinkers, survivors, and warriors in ways no other species could match. Luke stood beside her, looking over the battlefield. His gauntlet dimmed, and he let out a deep breath. "We did it," he said simply. His calm voice made her feel safe, like everything would be okay. Leela nodded, still catching her breath. Together, they had turned impossible odds into victory. The sun had set completely now, leaving the battlefield bathed in shadow. Fires burned here and there, lighting the broken ground. Leela looked at Luke and felt a deep respect and gratitude. This human had come from the sky when all seemed lost and had changed everything. He had not just fought, he had thought, planned, and adapted, showing her what humans were truly capable of. From the horizon, a few surviving Xylarians fled, but they were no longer a threat. The humans had proven themselves. They had survived the impossible and defeated an enemy far stronger and more numerous than themselves. Leela realized that humans were more than just warriors. They were unstoppable minds in action, capable of turning hopeless situations into triumph. Luke walked over to her, extending a hand. "Come on," he said with a small smile. "We're not done yet. Let's make sure they don't come back." Leela took his hand, feeling strength and hope flow through her. Together, they moved across the battlefield, making sure the remaining Xylarians fled completely. By the time the night had fully fallen, the battlefield was theirs. The fires burned low, the dust settled, and the echoes of battle faded into silence. Leela stood with Luke, exhausted but alive, victorious. She looked at him and realized something important. Humans were special. They were brave, clever, and unstoppable when they acted with courage and intelligence. Luke smiled at her. "Not bad for a first fight together," he said, his voice calm and steady. Leela laughed softly, still catching her breath. She had survived, learned, and grown, and she knew one thing for certain: humans were a force the galaxy would never forget. As they looked out over the battlefield, Leela felt hope. The Xylarians had been defeated, their army scattered, and the humans, two of them on this planet, had proven something that no alien could ignore. Humans were unstoppable. Humans could survive, adapt, and conquer impossible odds. And as she watched Luke move among the fallen enemies, ready for any threat that might appear, Leela knew one thing for sure. With humans like him in the galaxy, no enemy, no matter how powerful, could ever truly win. The stars shone brightly in the sky, and the fires of the battlefield lit the night. Leela stood beside Luke, knowing that the galaxy had just witnessed the power of humans. Not just their strength, but their intelligence, their courage, and their will to survive. Humans were extraordinary, and the universe would soon learn that lesson the hard way.